Welcome to episode 39 of Anglican Unscripted. This is the only video podcast show thingy on the internet. It's about Anglicans, it's for Anglicans, it's with Anglicans. It's kind of a weird thing, isn't it, George? I'm Kevin Carlson.
And I'm George Conger. And today's May 11th, 2012.
George, for today in history, we're going to go back 42 years to 1970 and the Hard Hat Rebellion. It's more of a riot. It's more of a time when people got sick and tired of hearing a lot of noise from the peace movement. Right after we did last week, we talked about the Kent State Massacre. That kind of moved into a rebellion around the East Coast here that in Manhattan, a bunch of anti-war protesters carried their Ho Chi Minh flags and their Vietnam rules and Down with America, and it really ticked off the people who were building the World Trade Center at the time. They came out with their hard hats and started the Hard Hat Riot.
It's on lunch hour on May 8th, 1970. The workers who were building the World Trade Center streamed out of the construction site and it descended on this anti-war movement protest. And they tore down the Viet Cong flags and put up American flags, and then they marched up to City Hall. And as they passed through Manhattan, the office workers in Wall Street, including from the stock exchange, came out and joined them in the march and protested and called for the mayor of New York to go. Mayor Lindsay is a red. They would chant marching up Wall Street. And they were pro-Nixon, pro-war, pro-America, and it was a counter-revolution of sorts that pitted the working class people of New York, the white-collar workers of New York, against the anti-war movement.
Now, it's not like one of those things you're going to read in a history book. This is something that happened locally here in Manhattan. A lot of people, well, I didn't hear about the Hard Hat Rebellion in my history class. Well, it was anti-war, it was quick, it was fast, and people were injured, but nobody died. Been a lot of news with GAFCON and the primates lately, and along with dealings here in America from the American Mission in America. This week's story is from Archbishop Eliud Wabakali. He's the primate of the province of Kenya. And this week there's two announcements from him. First, I'm leaving AMIA. Second, I'm getting married.
Yes, he left AMIA at the altar, announcing on Saturday that he was withdrawing from the College of Consultors of the Anglican Mission. And on Saturday, he also married a female priest to the Church of Kenya. And his reasons for leaving the AMIA were essentially that he had been, I don't want to say misled, but his understanding of what the AMIA was going to be doing in the coming months was different than the plans the AMIA had. He thought that by being on their College of Consultors, he was going to help them fold into the ACNA, when in reality that wasn't the plan.
No, I think the AMIA's plan all the time has to be a missionary society first, and whatever province will take us on, great, second. And that's kind of been the difficulty here, is mission versus jurisdiction. And we're getting to the point now where nobody really wants you, and it's going to be a difficult time and position because people are only willing to take you on temporarily.
Yes, the Congo has taken up the AMIA for the time being, but that is temporary. There are conditions attached to its membership in the House of Bishops, the Church of the Congo, but the General Synod of the Congo has to approve the decision made by the Archbishop, and there's some legal questions as to whether foreigners, non-Congolese, can be members of the House of Bishops of the Church of the Congo due to some laws passed in the 1970s about Africanization. The dictator Mobutu wanted to get rid of foreign missionaries, and he passed these laws to drive out overseas bishops and leaders of the church. Now Americans are becoming bishops of the Congolese church, and that may not be allowed under the law of the Congo. So we'll see what happens.
It's not allowed. We'll just see if they enforce it.
Well, it may not apply to them because they're not in the Congo, so they can't be arrested. But whatever the case, this is just an exciting thing for journalists because each week there's something. I mean, I get to talk about Mobutu, for instance, on the Anglican Mission America. That's exciting. You know, this is real. I mean, this is stuff I know. Nobody else knows about Mobutu Sese Seko. I do. And now he's worked into the Anglican Mission America. It's great.
I mean, it's crazy. Every week we go through the stories, and one of the top 3 stories is an AMIA story. We're like, oh no,
Kevin,
I don't want to talk about it.
I'm just waiting for the Freemason angle to come into this. Then I'll be in heaven. All the bases will be covered.
Oh, George, you might get your wish. George, moving on to story 2, we're going to talk about Bishop Todd Hunter. He lives in California. He's not currently as 4 days ago. He was a bishop in AMIA, and he's announced that he's going to move under Archbishop Duncan's authority as Bishop of Pittsburgh. So he's going into ACNA through Pittsburgh, as far as I can gather. Bishop Todd Hunter has been a wonderful church planter. He's been in AMIA for 3 years since, or maybe a little bit longer. He's been bishop for 3 years since the beginning of the ACNA province, June 2009. And here is kind of the mess that happens when something new has happened and we're trying to clean up the mess. AMIA has broken apart, and what are we going to do with the churches, the laities, the clergies, and the bishops? Well, the churches was easy to deal with. The clergy was kind of easy to deal with. Dealing with what to do with the bishops is a much more difficult task.
Yeah, and that I can understand the rationale and the motivation for welcoming Todd Hunter as a bishop into the Diocese of Pittsburgh. The problem is that this action does not conform to the Constitution and canons of the ACNA. So, the ACNA has been beaten about the head and shoulders with a stick by its critics for not being sufficiently Anglican, that it doesn't do things the right way, you can't do this, you can't do that. And the reception of the AMIA bishops is another stick that's being handed to its opponents abroad and in the United States who say, you're not really truly Anglican. And I'll give you a minor example. The official announcement says that Bishop Hunter is being transferred from the province of Rwanda to the Diocese of Pittsburgh. What that means is he's being transferred as a bishop to the status of a priest. See, lay people are members of congregations. Clergy are members of dioceses. Bishops are members of a house of bishops on a provincial or collegial level. By being transferred not to the ACNA's house of bishops, but to the Diocese of Pittsburgh, he is functionally and ecclesially a clergyman. He's not a bishop, but he's retaining the title of bishop, but he won't have any episcopal authority. See, there is no S-class, special bishop function in the ACNA Constitution canons, and nor is there an assisting bishop concept, which was how John Miller and T.J. Johnson were brought over. Mm-hmm. And you're just being set up for a fall by making things up as you go along like this.
Yeah, well, it's understandable. ACNA approached this mess with the AMIA bishops by, and you saw the interview last week with Archbishop Duncan. They went to the table and said to AMIA, what can we do to help? And I think in this chaos, you're taking dirty mop water to clean a floor, because to do the things you need to do, you kind of have to go outside your rule set. Now, canons are good when they're observed, but they can be held against you when they're not observed.
I can understand the motivation. I think it's wonderful, the intent of building new churches, bringing in new blood. I'm all for building up the kingdom of Christ, and the ACNA and C4SO has done a great job on that. However, part of the Anglican way is the fact that we are a structural, institutional church order. We're not a vineyard church where we can slide across these things back and forth and the rules are made up to fit situations.
Yeah, in Anglicanism there's no rules on the fly. Now, George and I may completely have this story wrong. Okay, there may have been some meetings in the College of Bishops where they've done something that we don't know yet. If we're wrong, just like when we did the AMIA story in June of last year, if we're wrong, correct us. But from what we see here, there's kind of an urgency to do something, and we want to be sure that you're not exposing yourself to outside critics. George, the news this week from North Carolina is the state has decided by a vote of 60 to 40% that they support marriage to be identified between a man and a woman. It's interesting because of who fought for this and the ramifications of what's happening nationally with our president after this. Who fought for this hard with a collar on the George?
Well, it was the Unitarians and some Episcopalians, led by Bishop Michael Curry of North Carolina, versus the Catholics, the Baptists, and people like Billy Graham. And guess who won in a fight between Billy Graham and Bishop Michael Curry?
Kaboom! Yeah, I know, weird. So what's happened is that the people of North Carolina has spoke. People who understand the Constitution understand that states have more rights than the federal government, but that never really happens because we give our money to the federal government. Long story, we're not going to go there. Let's go with how the president is identifying himself now. He has, I'm not going to say changed his mind, maybe he's kind of finally told the truth. What did President Obama do, George?
Well, he really disappointed a large section of the conservative population of the United States because he finally killed the story that he's a black Muslim and revealed that he's really a liberal white Protestant. He came out in favor of gay marriage.
Well, that's where my money was, liberal Protestant. Now, it is interesting because as a president, he has a voice and he's running for re-election. And when you take sides in America, no matter what side you take on almost any issue, 50% of the people love you, 50% of the people hate you. And he's taken a real side where the people who supported him in the past, we'll go with African Americans and North Carolina, really aren't going to be pleased with his decision.
Well, there's a very large element of political calculus in all this. President Obama believes that he can count on his base among the African American community to support him no matter what. But he also needs to energize his traditional left-wing base. We saw the kickoff of his campaign in Ohio, where the stadium was half empty and the people really weren't that enthusiastic. President Obama is cloaking himself with a hot-button issue in order to raise money and get out really committed volunteers, single-issue volunteers. It's the same thing as when Republicans pick abortion or something like that on the other side. It's a political ploy. And Barack Obama says his religious convictions now bring him to support gay marriage. Well, he had these same religious convictions 20 years ago when he supported it. Then when he ran for the Senate, he was against it. Now he's for it again. And sometimes I wonder about these religious convictions, because do you remember Jeremiah Wright?
Oh, yes. He had those convictions and he spoke loud of them.
Well, Jeremiah Wright believes that homosexuality is a plot by the CIA to destroy the black man. I kid you not. I wonder if he's following his pastor on this one.
So it's interesting. We come down, evolution, science, scripture, successful societies understand the role of marriage and the role of homosexual activity or same-sex activity. And then there's a whole bunch of politicians and bishops and all alike who want to hear and speak what itching ears want to hear. Anglican Unscripted welcomes our overseas contributor Peter Old live from Canterbury. Oh, you're kind of busy, I can see.
Sorry, just reading up on some heresy.
Heresy, yes. How to?
Depends how bad things get now,
yes.
doesn't it?
Okay, we got a live report today, actually, from Ireland. Let's bring people up to speed. Ireland, last week, the Archbishop of Ireland proposed what was called Motion 8, that of all things, marriage should be between a man and a woman, and if you are clergy and you're not married, you should be chaste. That means you don't do anything outside your bedroom door. Now, holy cow, this has erupted into a little bit of controversy in Ireland. It's not just about the beer. What's it about?
It's not just about the beer, though. The Irish beer is very good. What essentially happened was that a point of order was raised yesterday when the motion came forward by the Dean of Cork Cathedral, basically saying, well, wait a minute, the motion references Canon 31 of the Church of Ireland, which has the 3 reasons for marriage, procreation of children, sex kept within a union of the man and the woman, and mutual support, has them in a different order than that stated in the second marriage service in the 2004 Book of Common Prayer of the Church of Ireland. Therefore, we're making new doctrine by having it in that order. And the Archbishop of all Ireland, the Archbishop of Armagh, and said, "Okay, then let's not do the motion." That's a stupid argument, because what he's basically arguing is that just because you put 3 things in a certain order, you're saying that the first one is the most important and the second one isn't as important. That's like saying I go shopping to Walmart, and because I put milk on the top of my shopping list, it's more important than the bread that I've got halfway down. Well, it's a stupid argument.
It is. I mean, they're probably looking at the 10th Commandment saying, well, the first one's most important. Why can't we follow the same procedures?
Exactly. But you see, here's the thing. The 2004 Book of Common Prayer for the Church of Ireland has got 2 marriage services in. The first marriage service is more traditional, and it has it in the same order as Canon B31. Mm-hmm. So you kind of want to go, Dean of Cork, Nigel Dunn, why didn't you raise this 8 years ago when the BCP was published? Are you calling the committee who put together the BCP a bunch of theological numpties for not spotting this horrendous contradiction? It's ridiculous.
So yesterday, the motion was called out of order by Nigel, the Dean in Ireland, and he says it can't go forward because obviously we're taking sides here, making the first thing on the list too important, and that's not what marriage is all about. Today we have breaking news. What is it?
We have breaking news, and literally in the last few minutes, the Church of Ireland, the newsfeed from their General Synod, has basically said that they're going to discuss the issues tomorrow morning. Mm-hmm. And a new motion has been put forward under Standing Order 31D. And you know what, Kevin? I'm just reading through it now. It's very little difference to the original Motion 8. No. So I think someone somewhere in the Church of... in the General Synod, probably a few bishops, a few Orthodox bishops have gone, hang on a minute, we've just said something really stupid by accepting this point of order. We need to backtrack and do this properly.
All right, well, I want to thank you for the breaking news. Get back to your book.
It's apparently, yes. Apparently, I can have more than one wife.
No! Oh, I whoops.
I'm so very Romney.
Uh-oh, that's my wife calling right now. Uh-oh.
Which one?
Oh, yeah, which one? The one of 23 years, May 13th.
All right, Kevin.
All right, thank you. Bye-bye. Boy, it was late last night. I was lamenting that there's really no legal stories going on this week, and you and I were texting back and forth on Skype, and you're like, well, hey, maybe I'll get the week off. But no. Boom, breaking news. The Diocese of Los Angeles has a court victory by summary judgment, allowing a certain church to lose to Bruno.
Yes. This is actually a ruling made by the Orange County Superior Court, because the parishes involved, the cases all got consolidated in that county. St. James case, of course, is the lead case in Orange County, and that wasn't affected. This ruling affected the other 2 cases, which was St. David's in North Hollywood and All Saints Long Beach. And the judge apparently has granted summary judgment to the diocese and to the Episcopal Church on their complaints that the Dennis Canon take precedence over everything and require that the parishes must surrender all their properties as soon as they decide to leave the Episcopal Church.
Well, we've kind of doubled the audience since last time we've explained what summary judgment is. So let's do a quick lay definition. What does summary judgment mean?
Okay. Well, when you file a complaint you make allegations, and those allegations are just what you say you can prove in court. The defendant answers your allegations and says, no, you can't prove those, or here's the other facts, and so on. So you have a set of facts which are disputed, and maybe some facts on which everyone agrees as to what happens. If the court can reduce the case down to just undisputed facts, where there's no disagreement on either side as to what the facts are, then it grants a summary judgment to avoid having to go to trial, because there's no facts to try in front of a jury to have them decide which one is true or not. So in that case, the summary judgment says these are all undisputed facts, and based on these facts, the law is such, and I therefore grant judgment for whichever party it was.
Now,
So,
there's no way that the Dennis canon is not a disputed fact.
well, the thing is, it's a canon of the church, a bylaw, so it's kind of like a rule or regulation and the question is, how does it apply to the facts of the case? What there was no dispute about, of course, is that these churches voted to leave the Episcopal Church back in 2004. And so there's no dispute over that fact, and then the question is, yes, what's the effect of the Dennis canon? And if you give effect to that as a matter of law and don't allow any testimony as to whether the Episcopal Church is quote-unquote hierarchical, or whether the Dennis canon actually passed properly, General Convention in '79, because there's a lot of question about that too. But if you brush all that aside and say, no, we're not interested in the facts on those things, enough courts have already decided here in California that the Dennis canon is a proper rule of the Episcopal Church, and it trumps all the state laws about how you have to get trusts in property. Everyone else has to go down and get the actual owner of the property to sign a deed putting his property in trust. And then you get his signature, and then you take it and record it, and then there's a trust on that property. But only the Episcopal Church, it seems, in California, New York, and a few other places, can go in and not even go to California. It sits back in its General Convention, passes a canon, and boom, all of a sudden in all these states that allow it, there's a trust on everybody's property.
Which kind of makes the being in an Episcopal Church, you're a second-class citizen to the law.
Certainly in regard to the law of trusts, absolutely. And that's what, it presents a constitutional issue, and that's what's, of course, pending before the United States Supreme Court with these petitions for review from Connecticut and Georgia.
Okay, let's talk strategy then. If the Supreme Court takes up this case, and they're going to involve the Dennis canon, would you be suggesting to churches, hey, if you get a chance to settle, or would you say wait till the Supreme Court decides?
No, I'd say wait till the Supreme Court decides, because we should know by the end of June if the Supreme Court is going to accept those cases for review. We won't know, how many judges or justices are deciding which way or the other, and we won't know that until there's an opinion in the cases if they do get accepted for review, and that opinion would probably not be out before about this time next year. So there'll be all that time to wait and see, but the big question will be, will they accept the cases for review? And if they do accept the cases for review, that's a positive signal that they want to do something about this quandary, that the case that they decided back in 1979, Jones v. Wolf, that started this whole thing, they need to do something about it because it's been misconstrued and misapplied by all the various state courts.
Now, will this case that was just settled in Orange County affect other churches like St. James, Newport Beach? Is this going to be a precedent for them?
It's a lower court, and they claim to be following the California Supreme Court's ruling in 2009, which was a ruling not after a contested trial with facts, but a ruling simply based on the allegations made in the complaint. So the California Supreme Court indicated what would be the case if these facts were all proved true. And that's what is binding on the courts. In other words, they have to say, okay, these are the facts, and they match what the California Supreme Court said, therefore we'll grant summary judgment. St. James has a completely different position because they have an unusual factual wrinkle which will probably not allow the Episcopal Church or the diocese to get summary judgment. Bishop McPherson, now the Bishop of Western Louisiana, but back in the 1990s, I think it was the suffragan bishop of the Diocese of Los Angeles. And Orange County, in Newport Beach, the St. James Parish there, wanted to make a significant addition to its property. It had secured a large donation, but the donor insisted that the parish first get a waiver of the Dennis Canon. So it did. It went to the diocese, explained the situation, and Bishop McPherson signed an actual letter saying, we waived the application of the Dennis Canon to your property. So that's an unusual thing.
No.
And if bishops can do that, then St. James should have no trouble keeping its property, because the donor certainly relied on that waiver in giving the money and allowing the construction to go forward, and now to have it have to be turned over to the Episcopal Church seems like double dealing to me.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So, all right, well, I want to thank you. People don't know this, but I'm taping here on the East Coast at a nice, comfortable 11 a.m. You just, it's 8 a.m. over there in California. You got the week off. You're taking a little trip?
Yes. We're going to be going up to Ashland again to see some plays. So.
Oh, that's great. Last time you went to Ashland, big news broke, and you had to grab your laptop, and we recorded something about Bishop Mark Lawrence. That's
right. That was when they first made news that the charges had been filed against him, and all hell broke loose. And so there we are up in Ashland. But we covered it, and we'll do it again if it has to.
Yes, please bring your laptop. Thank you again, Alan. You have a great week.
Okay. Bye.
Kevin, have you checked your email yet, or your mailbox for that check I've been hearing about?
No, I just checked both places, and the Pope has not sent me any money at all. Apparently, he wrote a check now for $250,000 to the Anglican Ordinariate. And people say, oh, he's writing money to Anglicans. It's not what you think, is it, George?
No, I mean, I thought Anglican Ordinariate, Anglican Unscripted, he may have made a mistake to our advantage somewhere there.
We could use $250,000.
The Pope last week sent money to support the Anglican Ordinariate in England. They have, I think, about 100 clergy and about 1,200 people. And 1,200 people cannot financially support 100 clergy.
No, in fact, it's not just clergy. When you move into the Anglican Ordinariate, an Anglican clergy has a wife, most times, and families, and so you're bringing a family into a $18,000 a year job.
Now, I'm very happy for those people who feel that God is leading them into the Catholic Church through the Ordinariate. I'm not trying to beat up on them. I just wonder about its short-term financial viability. It's a clergy-heavy organization, and they're not going to be able to generate the funds, certainly not in England, because people don't give to churches the way they do in America in England. I don't know how they're going to make it with the funds that they have on hand. They don't have any buildings, they don't have any endowments, they just have clergy.
Yeah, they have lots of clergy. In fact, they have to rent space from Catholic churches. So I guess if they're renting spaces, the money goes back to the Roman Catholic Church. So it's kind of a good investment for Pope Benedict.
Well, also in the U.S., we're also going to be seeing in the next few weeks the first ordinations of former Episcopal clergy directly into the Ordinariate. I know Father Owsley in the Diocese of Pennsylvania, and Father Whitfield in Fort Worth, and some other people in Fort Worth are being ordained as deacons in the next few weeks. And so they're starting the Ordinariate in the U.S. is different. They have a stronger financial base. People in the United States are used to supporting clergy at a certain level of financial support. So I think the Ordinariate in America probably has a longer-term viability than it does in England. Even though it may be bigger in England right now, I think it'll last in America, because I think the deep pockets are here to make it successful.
George, let's do a story about the Anglican Consultative Council and Anglicans and how they communicate. It was about 2 weeks ago we saw a memo from Jan Butter, more of a press release, which may be part of the issue, complaining about not getting the message out within the Anglican communion about what's going on and really presenting information to Anglicans. And his solution was, well, we need to be more about websites and social media and meet people where they're at. I read this and I said, I'm not sure the Anglican communicators understand it may not be how they're communicating, but what they're communicating.
Yes, they believe that the median is the message, meaning that if we have really slick websites and really expensive live streaming and video uplinks and really great newspapers and magazines, people will flock to the Anglican way and understand what we're doing. The problem is when the content is awful, you can have the best platform in the world and no one will look at it.
No.
And their content is awful.
It is. It's dry. It's like, and I don't read it. I mean, I get press releases all the time from Lambeth and on down, and they're not really readable or understandable or entertaining. And I can say this because you're watching two middle-aged gentlemen, one graying pretty bad here and balding, the other with a collar who would normally be considered kind of dry, and you're entertained by us. And it's not just us, it's the message you're hearing. We encourage you about the body, we talk about the news, and we are excited about what we talk about. And I don't get that in these press releases.
I think the thing that we have is, well, we like each other and we like what we do, but we also engage in a narrative. In other words, we tell what is going on in a narrative fashion. We're not trying to convince you of anything. We're not trying to manipulate you.
And we're really good at English.
We really don't know what the hell we're talking about half the time. But hey, I think that the point that I would want to make is that when your content stinks, you can have the best platform in the world, but it doesn't matter. The Anglican Consultative Council used to have a magazine called Anglican World, and it was beautiful. It was well crafted, well designed, lovely pictures, but the content, the articles, a speech by the ACC Secretary General, you just go to sleep. And you couldn't even give this stuff away. You can have really great websites, you can have really on-the-ball Twitter and internet platforms, but at the end of the day, the median is not the message. The message is the good news of Jesus Christ, not the fact that you've got a slick way of packaging it.
No. And how do we know this? Well, you right now are watching two middle-aged, slightly overweight gentlemen talk about Anglican news. You find it entertaining. We love to do it. And we're talking in a different way about Anglicanism than just delivering the straight news. We're analyzing the news and really helping you get beyond the jot and tittle of what it is, but to really say, yeah, they're right about that.
The attempt to sort of grease the skids for some sort of Anglican...
Is that a Jan Butter joke?
I'm being polite, Kevin. That's just a metaphor.
Okay.
The attempt to grease the skid so that your message just slides out on a creamy goodness spread of peace, joy, and happiness is just not working. And it will never work because the church is not designed to function as an advertising agency.
And I'm not speaking about making the message palatable. It's not our job to make Christ palatable or the message palatable, but it's you need to understand who is reading this message more than you need to know about social media and delivering it by Twitter. The people who watch Anglican Unscripted, as we have a large female audience, we have a large clergy audience, and a large lay audience, and they're really interested in what other people think about what's going on.
We're not trying to manipulate readers. We're not trying to put across a particular party line. We're just sharing our beliefs and the narrative as we know it. Mm-hmm. And you can't fake it.
No, and it's very apparent when you're delivering your news through press releases, people aren't reading those. When you're delivering your news through good news, people can't wait to read it.
Well, it also says something, and maybe this is not a good thing, but we'll get 10 times the viewership of one of our episodes than the Archbishop of Canterbury will get from one of his YouTube podcasts. I don't know if that says something bad about Anglicans, or it just says that even with the best technology and the most sophisticated equipment, if your message is not compelling and interesting and relevant, it's not going to go. Kevin, one of the things I learned when I worked for the Living Church magazine was never to approach a story in a certain way. If I wanted to sell something to the editor, David Calvaledge, the worst thing I could say is, David, I've got big news coming out of Canada. Because whenever I hit the word Canada, his eyes would glaze over. And if the story did make the magazine, it would be back of the candle ads in the way back. Well, Kevin, I've got a big story coming out of Canada, and I hope our viewers aren't going to turn off at this stage.
Yeah, stick with us here, please. Just a little patience. George, what's the story?
The province of Canada, which is which is part of the Anglican Church of Canada, but it's Quebec and Montreal and the Maritime provinces. They're going to decide at their full synod whether to take 7 dioceses and consolidate them into 3 because of dramatic and massive losses in membership and income.
Yeah, what's an amazing thing that happens when the life cycle of the church, everybody wants to blame the theology. Well, what we have here is demographics of people moving, relocating to different places where there's more jobs. And in Quebec, you have that whole French thing going on. And this really affects the life cycle of a church. Provinces all the time have to say, we're kind of top heavy. What are we going to do about consolidating our finances and making this work? Now, it's very hard for churches to adapt, especially when it comes to business sense and business acumen. They just don't have it within them to say, we haven't made anything in the black in 20 years, but as long as we have these endowment funds, it doesn't matter. Well, guess what? After 20, 25 years, those endowment funds are gone, and you're left with no money. Now you got to make the really hard decisions.
Mm-hmm. And that's happening in Canada. It's happening in the United States. Diocese of Western New York, for example. Buffalo is hemorrhaging people. Industry is shutting down, moving away. Young people, when they finish high school or college, are moving away as well. And what does that do to the Episcopal Church? There's no base, if you will, for it to grow. So not only do you have sort of kooky churchmanship in that diocese, you have the population falling away, which is one reason why that diocese has been in a free fall for a number of years.
Yeah, and Dean Mooney addressed this in an article on his blog a couple weeks ago when we talked about the show, is that even dioceses here in America in the Episcopal Church have to consolidate. It was about a year ago that Eau Claire and Fond du Lac tried to consolidate, but they don't have the votes. But we're going to find Chicago, Quincy, and other places where the churches just aren't being supported and are becoming top-heavy, that the logical approach is to consolidate and reduce your expenses. Now, the first thing us people on the conservative side say, look at you, your theology is causing a problem. But that's not really the full reality here.
Yes, I mean, one of the dirty little secrets about Florida is that the dioceses always do well because people come here to retire. Mm-hmm. So we're, my little parish, I can always count on people, getting new people every year, not from anything I do, but simply from the fact that the U-Haul has moved into town. Other parts of the country is not as fortunate. So yes, there are dioceses, Newark, for example, which is the prime example, where bad theology drove down the population by a third under the time of Jack Spong. But there are other dioceses, Pittsburgh and Quincy, for instance, that had a hemorrhaging of people because people moved away. The Rust Belt was not attracting people, while Florida, for instance, and Texas were growing because people were moving in. So it's easy to beat up on people, but there are bigger issues involved.
No, there are. It's we call it the life cycle of a diocesan church, and it's always going to be a dynamic, and you have to pay close attention to: is it the people moving? Is it a people thing, or is it a theology thing? Here, it's a people thing combined with a theology thing. Be careful; it's not always a theology thing. George, we do a quick mailbag. Last week we asked, are there any female viewers watching Anglican Unscripted? Well, the results are in. Yes, lots. Now,
and they're not all nuns.
And they're not all nuns. I want to qualify this because we got lots of emails from female viewers, and thank you for watching, and thank you for giving us hope. Now, but there's some unqualified ones. The 4 or 5 clergy who wrote and said that my wife watches Anglican Unscripted, those don't count. We wanted female viewers to directly connect us. You can't just say your wife watches. Nah. False call. George, we made it to the end of episode 39, and I'm really praying it didn't go like last week. Episode 38, we had to record 4 times. First time because my microphone fell out of my shirt and down on the floor, and it was really quiet. Second time we recorded, George's battery or his microphone was turned off, and when I sat down to edit it, his voice was off. And then something happened with the third one. I don't remember. It took 4 tapings to get episode 38 up, and then I had to upload it 3 times to the internet. So we're praying that this one goes much better. But if you're kind of wondering why last week's episode was 2 days late, it took 2 days to really, extra days to do it. Thank you for watching. Now let's talk about how to contact us. We're both on Facebook and Twitter. I'm putting those links up right now. And now I'm going to turn it over to George, who's going to tell you why you need to contact us.
Again, contact us to help us focus on the stories that you find of interest. I received a number of emails about the upcoming ordinations for the Ordinariate, and that was one of the underlying issues that directed our attention to look at the Pope giving money to the Ordinariate. In other words, we try to be responsive, to the ideas that you send to us, and I think over half, 2/3 of the issues that we talked about were addressed in letters to us saying you really need to look at this. So your emails drive a great deal of the content of this show.
In fact, we got interrupted during the show by breaking news from Ireland.
Yeah, we had a story that we added into the cycle because a viewer from Ireland wrote about what was going on at Synod.
Yeah. Now, what's really interesting is you guys are participants and help exchange ideas with the show. A lot of you are brand new to this and have somebody forwarded you the tape to Anglican Unscripted. You want to know how to get contacted when a new one comes out. If you go to the Anglican TV website or the AnglicanInc.com website, you're going to see an email button. And if you click on that, you can sign up to be on the email list. Click on the Anglican Unscripted link and sign up to get emails sent to you right away. So once I post this episode online, you'll get an email a few minutes later that the episode is up. We try with this new cycle to do it by 5 o'clock on Friday, but technical difficulties sometimes interfere. I'm Kevin Carlson.
And I'm George Conger, and you've been watching episode 39 of Anglican Unscripted. Different unions.
Different unions at a different time. All right, let's do that one more time. That's pretty cool. That worked good.
Were you ever a member of a union? I was.
Yeah, I was a steward of a union, the Steelworkers Union. I helped write the contract that they kept for many, many years because it was very good to the company. It was very good to the union.
I had a summer job where I had to join a union as a longshoremen's union.
Oh, really?
As to be a dock worker at a port loading and unloading ships.
Oh, yeah. George, what haven't you done?
Held an adult job in the last 30 years.
made become rich.
I haven't, all these things, I've not really found my métier yet. I don't really do anything well. I just can get by in a lot of little things.
What do you want to be when you grow up?
Well, I'd like to grow up. That's what I'd like.
I grew out. Okay. 3, 2, 1.